ETH has been on a strong run, smashing through the key 4K resistance and holding its ground. Bitcoin dominance is still hovering near 60%, and a drop below that level could set off a powerful altcoin rally. The big question now is whether ETH's momentum will spill over into altcoins, or if ETH will keep leading the charge until a possible September cooldown. In this video, we'll look at ETH's dominance and the overall altcoin rotation setup. We will also see how similar situations played out in past rallies and break down what the data is pointing to this time. I'll lay out a data-backed case for both an imminent altcoin rally and a more cautious outlook. If you find value in this kind of analysis, hit like to help the channel reach more viewers and subscribe to stay ahead with every update. Let's jump straight into it. Bitcoin dominance is still clinging to that 60% level as Bitcoin pushes past 120K and edges toward its all-time high zone. Historically, when dominance breaks decisively below 60%, it often sets the stage for a strong altcoin rally. But the real story right now is the sheer strength ETH is showing against Bitcoin. The ETH-BTC ratio has been ripping higher, climbing around 50% in just the last 4 weeks. That kind of move sends a clear signal that capital is starting to shift away from Bitcoin, the market's traditional safe play, and into ETH and potentially the wider altcoin space. A rising ETH-BTC ratio usually points to growing risk-on sentiment, where investors are willing to step out of Bitcoin's safety net in search of higher returns. What makes this setup even more interesting is that ETH is flexing its strength while most altcoins are still waiting on the sidelines. That kind of divergence doesn't happen often, and when it does, it can create the conditions for explosive catch-up moves if the rotation kicks in. If you've been through a few bull runs, you know the old rotation playbook. Money flows into Bitcoin, then into ETH, and only after that do the fireworks begin as capital moves into smaller, high-risk altcoins. Last November and December were a perfect example. Bitcoin dominance dropped 11% in a few weeks, and the altcoin market cap excluding ETH jumped more than 2.4x. This time, it's different. In the last 4 weeks, dominance is down about 7%, but altcoin market cap is only up around 15%. That's far from the explosive moves we've seen in past cycles when dominance started dropping. It tells us the full ETH to alts rotation hasn't happened yet. Most capital is still in the bigger names, while smaller plays are just waiting for their moment. You can see this even more clearly when you stack altcoins against ETH. The ETH-BTC chart has been climbing, but if you flip it and look at the Alt-ETH ratio, it's clear that most altcoins are still lagging. ETH has been outperforming almost every large-cap altcoin. This kind of divergence usually means we're in what I call the ETH momentum phase. It's that middle stage where confidence floods into ETH, but risk appetite for smaller, more volatile coins just isn't there yet. If you check others' dominance, it's still sitting below the April bottom when ETH bottomed out, and it's over 10% away from even the pre-November breakout levels. That tells you altcoins outside ETH are extremely compressed, and the upside potential on many underrated names is huge. Zooming out, altcoin dominance tends to follow a clear pattern. It pumps into the halving, dumps hard right after, then rips once it bottoms. That final push is usually the euphoric Altseason where most of the bull run gains are made. This cycle has been a bit different. We got the same pre-halving pump as usual, but the sharp post-halving dump never came. Instead, we've had a slow bleed since topping in the halving month. We had a 40% pop in the December rally, but that was wiped out in January, and we've been sliding down since. Since June, though, momentum has been shifting upward. And remember, the longer and more painful the consolidation, the bigger and more explosive the breakout that follows. You can catch these market updates and deep on-chain insights in real time on X with plenty of valuable info that doesn't always make it into the videos. Follow us there to stay ahead of the curve. You can also hop into our free Discord where some sharp minds share ideas and real-time alpha on the markets. Links are in the description. So what is the short-term bullish scenario for altcoins? One of the biggest signals right now is ETH's strength against Bitcoin. The ETH-BTC ratio is climbing, which shows risk-on sentiment is building in the market. ETH's momentum has a history of acting as the spark that sets the broader altcoin market on fire. On-chain data also shows ETH's market isn't overheated yet, which means there's still plenty of room to move higher. A strong breakout above the 4,400 resistance could set up a quick run toward its all-time high. And if that happens, traders will likely get the confidence to move further down the risk curve, shifting capital into altcoins and kicking off a powerful rally. The bullish setup here is that liquidity is piling up in ETH, and when it finally starts spilling into higher beta altcoins, we could see the kind of cascade that triggers a true alt season. That's when alt dominance starts ripping higher, the Altseason index pushes into the 80s, and Bitcoin dominance breaks below 60%. The key things to watch now are that break under 60% BTC dominance and altcoin dominance continuing the climb it began back in June. If those line up, the gates to a full-blown altcoin season swing wide open. Now let's flip to the cautious side of things and talk about why we haven't seen a real altcoin rally yet and what could throw this off. A big part of it comes down to the type of money coming into the market right now. This isn't the fast-moving, speculative retail money we saw in past cycles. This is sticky money. A lot of it is from institutional players who have a completely different risk profile. They want assets with strong fundamentals and proven utility. And with ETH offering staking yield and a solid track record, it checks all the boxes for them. They're not here for a quick flip, they're treating ETH as a core reserve position. That's why this capital is staying parked in ETH instead of flowing into smaller caps right away. And that's also why the rotation into altcoins is moving slower than what we're used to seeing in previous bull runs. This momentum we're seeing isn't the usual retail-driven surge. There's a bigger shift happening with fresh institutional capital pouring in. The approval of ETH spot ETFs has opened the floodgates for traditional finance, and the demand is already massive. ETH ETFs have crossed $10 billion in assets, with a record $2.3 billion in net inflows just in July. On top of that, we've got something new this cycle: ETH-treasury companies. These are corporations stacking ETH on their balance sheets. Sharplink Gaming and Bitmine are two big names here, with Bitmine openly aiming to accumulate 5% of all ETH in existence. Since June, these treasury players have picked up 1.6% of the entire circulating supply, which is the same pace as ETF buying over that period. While the bullish case is solid, it's important to stay balanced and consider the other side. The current ETH-led rally could just be a temporary peak before we see a period of consolidation or even a bigger pullback, especially with September around the corner. History and the way institutional capital behaves both point to this possibility. There's something traders call the September effect, the tendency for markets to underperform during this month. It often becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy as investors turn cautious and avoid moving money into the riskier corners of the market. In that kind of environment, we usually see a flight to safety, where capital moves out of high-risk altcoins and into more stable assets. If that happens, there are two likely scenarios. First, if ETH's rally loses steam and market uncertainty grows, a lot of the new institutional money in ETH could rotate back into Bitcoin. That would push Bitcoin dominance higher and likely shut down any altcoin rally in the short term. Second, ETH keeps its momentum through August, doesn't let rotation happen, and stays strong through a September cooldown. In that case, the real rotation into altcoins might not kick off until later in Q4 2025. The setup for an altcoin rotation is definitely there. ETH has done its part by breaking key resistance and showing that institutional demand is very real. Bitcoin dominance is sitting at a critical level and the pieces are lining up. While this cycle has played out differently from the start, with institutional flows and a more selective market shaping the moves, that doesn't mean the rotation won't happen. It just might be more focused and explosive for the right projects. The altcoins that do catch a bid could still deliver big moves, even if it's not a blanket 2021-style pump across the board. If ETH can hold its strength and Bitcoin dominance breaks lower, we could be looking at the start of a powerful altcoin phase. The next few weeks will be key in telling us whether this momentum spills into the broader market or keeps concentrating in the top assets. What do you think? Are we on the edge of that classic rotation, or will this cycle rewrite the playbook yet again? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit like if this was useful, and subscribe for more market breakdowns. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.